I found out my parents bought a $59,000 boat the same day they kicked me out for being a leech. The text message came 3 months later at 2:47 a.m. Your father had a heart attack. He's asking for you. Please come home. I stared at those words glowing on my screen. Thought about the secret bank account with $23,000 I'd discovered. The credit cards they'd opened in my name. The laptop, my mother pawned while I was at work. Then I did something that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. I set my phone face down and went back to sleep. The next morning, I blocked the number. You need to hear what happened between Thanksgiving dinner and that text message. Because I promise you won't see this coming. If you've ever been the family ATM or felt trapped by people who were supposed to love you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe, because this story has more twists than a soap opera. Drop a comment if you want to know what happened to my parents after I cut them off. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare really started. 6 months earlier, I was sitting at my parents' Thanksgiving table, watching the chandelier I'd bought them last March sparkle over the turkey I'd spent 12 hours preparing. I'd woken up at 5 in the morning to get that bird in the oven. Hand-basted it, every 45 minutes. Made the stuffing from scratch using my grandmother's recipe. The smell of rosemary and sage had filled the house, mixed with the scent of the pumpkin pies I'd baked the night before. I was wearing the navy dress I'd picked up from Nordstrom on sale, the one that cost me $200, but made me look professional and put together. My hair was pulled back in the kind of neat bun that said successful marketing professional who has her life together. At 25, I'd just been promoted to senior marketing specialist at a tech firm downtown, pulling in $72,000 a year. Not rich, but comfortable. Or it should have been. The dining room looked perfect. I'd set the table with the china I'd ordered online 6 months ago when my mother mentioned she wanted to host properly. The crystal wine glasses caught the light beautifully. The centerpiece of autumn leaves and white candles looked like something from a magazine spread. I'd even pressed the linen napkins. For God's sake. Everything was perfect because I'd made it perfect. Paid for it to be perfect. Sacrificed my time and money to make sure this family dinner would be something special. My father sat at the head of the table like a king surveying his kingdom. Frank Mitchell, 50 years old. Hadn't worked a legitimate job in 18 months. Not since he got fired from Preston Auto Sales for showing up drunk 3 times in 1 week. But you wouldn't know it from looking at him. He still carried himself with that salesman swagger. Still wore the expensive cologne I'd noticed on his bathroom counter last week. His shirt was new too. A crisp button-down that probably cost $80. I'd wondered where that money came from. But I'd pushed the thought away. I always pushed those thoughts away. My mother, Denise, sat to his right. Her face smooth and practically glowing. At 48, she looked 10 years younger than she had 6 months ago. Her cheeks were fuller. Her forehead unnaturally smooth. Her lips plumper. She'd told me it was a new skincare routine. Some miracle cream she'd found. But I'd seen the appointment reminders on the kitchen calendar. All scheduled for Tuesday mornings. Doctor appointments. She called them. Important medical care that my health insurance, the $437 a month premium I'd been paying since my father lost his job, was covering. Tessa sat across from me. My 17-year-old baby sister. She looked thin, almost fragile. Dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. She'd been keter lately, spending more time in her room. When I asked her about it, she just said school was stressful. Senior year and all. But there was something else in her eyes. Something haunted that made my stomach twist. I just announced my promotion, trying to inject some positivity into the dinner conversation that had been stilted at best. They're giving me a 15% raise in my own team. I start managing 3 people in January. I'd been so proud. Worked 70-hour weeks for 6 months to earn this. Stayed late, came in early, proved myself over and over again. That's when my father's fist came down on the table. The impact was so violent that the wine glasses jumped, red wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim. The crystal chandelier above us trembled, its crystals tinkling like wind chimes. Everything froze. The fork I'd been holding hovered halfway to my mouth. You're a leech. Scarlet. His voice was low, controlled, which somehow made it worse than if he'd been shouting. Agodam parasite. Sucking this family dry while pretending to be so generous. You need to be out of this house by the end of the week." The words hung in the air like smoke, like poison gas spreading through the room. I felt them hit me, each one a separate blow. Leech. Parasici. Out by the end of the week. This was my childhood home. The place I'd lived for most of my 25 years. Minus the 4 years I'd been away at college on a full scholarship that I'd earned myself. I'd moved back after graduation to help out while my father looked for work. That was 3 years ago. My mother, with her freshly filled cheeks and Botoxed forehead that couldn't quite form a natural expression anymore, studied her plate with intense focus. She cut a piece of turkey into smaller and smaller pieces, her movements precise and deliberate. She didn't look at me, didn't defend me, didn't say a single word. Tessa dropped her fork. The clatter was painfully loud in the sudden silence, the silver bouncing once against her plate before falling to the floor. Her face had gone pale, her eyes wide and glistening with tears. She was clearly fighting to hold back. I should have cried. I should have argued. I should have demanded to know what the hell he was talking about. What I'd done to deserve this. The old Scarlet. The one from 6 months ago or a year ago. Would have apologized. Would have asked what she'd done wrong. Would have immediately started trying to fix whatever had upset him. But something in me had shifted. Maybe it was the promotion. The recognition from people outside this house that I had value. Maybe it was the exhaustion from pretending everything was fine. Maybe it was the way my mother wouldn't meet my eyes. The guilt written all over her immobile features. Instead, I smiled. Not a big smile, just a small curve of my lips that didn't reach my eyes. I reached for the bowl of roasted potatoes I'd seasoned with rosemary from the plant I'd bought for their kitchen window. The one I watered every other day because no one else remembered to. I spooned a generous portion onto my plate and took a bite. The potatoes were perfect. Crispy on the outside, fluffy on the inside, but they tasted like ash in my mouth. My father's face turned from red to purple. A vein throbbed in his temple. "Did you hear me?" "Scarlet." I chewed slowly, swallowed, took a sip of the wine I'd brought, a $30 bottle of Pinot Noir that was supposed to pair well with turkey. "I heard you perfectly." "Dad." My voice was calm, almost eerily so. I stood up, collected my plate and Tessa's, whose dinner had barely been touched. "Excuse me." I walked into the kitchen, and my heels clicking against the tile floor I'd paid to have professionally cleaned last month. The kitchen was a disaster zone. Every pot and pan I owned was dirty, stacked in the sink and on the counters. I'd been cooking since dawn and hadn't had time to clean as I went. I set the plates down by the sink and braced my hands against the counter. Taking a deep breath, that's when my mother followed me. I heard her footsteps, softer than mine, felt her presence behind me. "Scarlet." "Honey." Her voice had that syrupy quality, the fake sweetness she used when she wanted something. "You're still going to pay the health insurance premium this month." "Right. I have an important appointment on Tuesday. The doctor said I can't miss it." I turned to look at her. Really look at her. Her lips were definitely fuller than they'd been last month. The fine lines around her eyes had disappeared. Her forehead was smooth as a teenager's. "Important medical appointment." I repeated slowly. "Yes. Very important. For my health." She fidgeted with her napkin, not quite meeting my eyes. "The premium is due on the 1st. And with your father still looking for work, we're relying on you. You know that." I looked out the kitchen window at my Honda Civic parked in the driveway. 7 years old, but reliable. With 130,000 miles on it. Paid off 3 years ago with money I'd earned from my first job out of college. The title was in my name. Only my name. It was the only thing in my life that was entirely, completely, undeniably mine. "Of course. Mom. I'll take care of it before I leave." She smiled then, relief, flooding her features as much as the Botox would allow. "Thank you. Sweetheart. You're such a good daughter." She patted my arm and walked back to the dining room, but inside, everything had crystallized. I was finally seeing everything clearly, like someone had wiped away fog from a window I'd been staring through my entire life. I didn't go back to the dining room. I went upstairs to my bedroom. The room I'd had since I was 7. The walls were still painted the pale yellow I'd chosen as a teenager. My old cheerleading trophies sat on the shelf, gathering dust next to the debate team medals and academic achievement awards. Evidence of a girl who'd always tried so hard to be good enough, to make her parents proud, to earn love that should have been freely given. I started packing. Not neatly. Not carefully. I pulled clothes from hangers and shoved them into garbage bags, because when I looked in my closet, I realized my suitcases were gone. Both of them. The set I'd bought 2 years ago for a work conference in Denver. I looked in the usual spots. Checked under my bed. In the hallway closet. Gone. Sold. Probably. Like so many other things had been sold over the past year when money got tight. My old tablet, the nice speakers I'd bought for the living room, the KitchenAid mixer I'd gotten as a college graduation gift from my roommate. As I was emptying my dresser drawers, something caught my eye. My father's desk. The heavy oak one that used to be in his home office before he'd had to downsize to save on utilities. He'd moved it into my room 6 months ago, because there was no space anywhere else. I'd been using it for my work laptop. My files. My work materials. But it was still full of his stuff. The bottom drawer was slightly open. I never used that drawer. Had never looked inside. But something made me pull it open further. Inside were folders. Papers. The usual detritus of someone who used to have a career. But tucked in the back, underneath a pile of old sales brochures, was a bank statement. My hands shook as I pulled it out. The account number wasn't familiar. It wasn't the family checking account or the savings account that had been emptied for emergencies 3 months ago. This was different. Private. Secret. The balance made me sit down hard on my bed. $23,418. And the transaction history showed regular deposits over the past year, unemployment benefits that I'd thought were barely covering groceries. Siddiqis he'd mentioned doing. But the deposits were substantial, consistent, and the withdrawals told a story that made my blood run cold. Online poker. 500 here. 800 there. Liquor stores. Restaurants I'd never been to. A withdrawal of $5,000 3 months ago. Right around the time he told me the savings account was empty and could I help with the mortgage payment. And most recently, a withdrawal for $5,500 just last week, with a notation I had to squint to read. Boat deposit. Next to the statement was a glossy brochure for a 24-foot cabin cruiser. Cherry red with white detailing. Powerful motor. Sleeping cabin. The works. The price tag was $59,000. And on the first page, written in my father's aggressive scrawl, was a note. Deposit $5. Wubei. Delivery after Thanksgiving. Slip #47 Marina Bay. My vision blurred. The edges of the brochure seemed to warp and bend. I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers and opened my banking app, the one I checked religiously every day, watching my savings grow with each paycheck. Planning for the future. Planning to move out and get my own place. Planning to finally start living my own life. $763.42. Blinked. Refreshed the app. The number didn't change. In January, I'd had $9,300 saved. 9 months of careful budgeting. Of skipping lunch to save money. Of buying generic brands and shopping sales. 9 months of telling myself that contributing to family expenses was temporary. Just until Dad found work. Just until things stabilized. I opened my credit card app, the one I'd used for family emergencies. The balance was $4,200. I'd paid it down to 0 in December. How was it at $4,200? I started scrolling through the charges. Grocery stores. But for amounts that seemed too high, the liquor store 3 towns over, gas stations in places I'd never been. A charge for $500 at a jewelry store in the mall. Another charge for $300 at a nail salon. Dinners at restaurants. A charge for $200 at a sporting goods store. None of these charges were mine. I hadn't used this card in months except for the pre-authorized family expenses. The electric bill. The internet. The health insurance. But someone had the number. Someone had been using it. I grabbed the folder. Pulled out everything. More statements. More proof. A credit card I didn't recognize. But with my name on it. My social security number. A balance of $6,000. How? When I'd never applied for this card. Never signed anything. My door creaked open. Tessa slipped inside, closing it softly behind her. Her face was blotchy from crying. Her eyes red. She looked at me. At the papers spread across my bed. At the garbage bags half full of my clothes. And something in her expression broke. "Scarlett, I need to tell you something." Her voice was barely a whisper. She sat on the edge of my bed, her thin shoulders hunched. "I should have told you weeks ago. Months ago. But I was scared. I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight. Closed. I just nodded. They've been planning this." The words tumbled out of her in a rush. Like she'd been holding them back for so long, they were bursting to escape. "I heard them talking in September. Dad said they needed to wait until you paid all the November bills. And then they'd kick you out. Mom said it was perfect timing because you'd just put the winter heating deposit down and paid for her dental work." "Dental work," I repeated numbly. "Her teeth are perfect." "It wasn't dental work." Tessa twisted her hands in her lap. "It was more Botox. And fillers. Her Tuesday appointments. They're at that med spa in Westfield. The fancy one. She uses your insurance card and tells them it's for migraine treatment. They bill it as medical necessity." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the bed. "How do you know all this?" "She took me with her once. Made me wait in the car. But I saw the sign when we pulled up. And I've heard them laughing about it. About how easy it is to game the system. About how you're so naive, you believe everything they tell you." Tears streamed down her face. "Dad's been taking money from your wallet too. When you're in the shower in the morning, he goes through your purse. 20 here. 40 there. Enough that you wouldn't notice right away. But it adds up." The credit card I held up the statement for the card I'd never applied for. "Do you know about this?" Tessa nodded miserably. "I saw mail from them. Before you got home from work. Dad said it was fine. That you were family. That your credit was good and his was ruined, so he needed to use yours. He said you'd want to help. That you'd understand because you loved us." I wanted to scream. Wanted to throw something. Wanted to grab those bank statements and march downstairs and shove them in my father's face. But instead, I just felt cold. Numb. Like I was watching this happen to someone else. I opened my banking app again and showed Tessa my balance. She gasped. Actually gasped. Her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God. Scarlett. You're almost broke." "Yeah." The word came out flat. "I am." I pulled the box out from under my bed. The one I'd been keeping meticulous records in because some part of me, some small voice in the back of my head, had known I'd need proof someday. Inside were 9 months of receipts. Every single purchase I'd made for this house. For this family. Organized by month in labeled folders because that's who I was. Organized. Careful. Responsible. The desk I was sitting next to. Receipt from Wayfair. $1,100. Purchased in March. The new refrigerator after theirs died in April. $2,300 from Home Depot. Delivered and installed. Tessa's laptop for school. $800 in June. The living room carpet after their old one got ruined by a leak they'd ignored too long. $1,500 from Lowe's in July. The new microwave. The coffee maker. The air fryer Mom had wanted. The plates we'd eaten dinner on tonight. The crystal chandelier in the dining room that I'd bought because Mom mentioned wanting something elegant for dinner parties she never hosted. $400. Every single receipt had one thing in common. Paid by Scarlett Mitchell. Purchased by Scarlett Mitchell. Owned by Scarlett Mitchell. I'm not leaving quietly. I told my sister. Tessa looked at me with fear and something else. Something that might have been hope. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. But I'm not going to let them destroy me." I started taking pictures of every bank statement. Every receipt. Every piece of evidence. My phone's storage was almost full by the time I was done. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to my parents' voices drift up from downstairs. They were laughing. Actually laughing. The TV was on power, some late-night show, and I could hear the familiar sound of my father mixing another drink. His 4th or 5th of the evening, probably from the expensive whiskey I'd noticed in the kitchen. The bottle that cost $60 and had appeared last week. At dawn, I was already dressed and ready. I'd packed everything I couldn't bear to leave behind into garbage bags and my car. My clothes, my important documents, my grandmother's jewelry that I'd kept in my top drawer, my laptop, my work files, my photographs, everything else. All the furniture they'd let me bring when I moved back after college. Could stay. I didn't care anymore. I drove to the bank as soon as it opened at 9. The banker, a kind woman named Patricia, who'd helped me open my first savings account when I was 16. I looked concerned when I asked to close all my accounts and open new ones at a different institution. Is everything okay? Honey, no, I said, but it will be. I transferred every remaining penny to a new account at a credit union across town. $763.42. It was all I had left from 9 months of work. I set up fraud alerts on all my new accounts, changed every password to strings of random characters, activated two-factor authentication, called the credit card companies, and reported the fraudulent card in my name. They were very interested to hear that I'd never applied for it, never signed anything, never authorized anyone to use my information. Then I went to my cell phone provider, the family plan that I'd been paying for, $187 a month for 4 lines. I removed my line from the plan and started my own account. Kept my number but cut all ties. I did the same with the internet. The account was in my name because my father's credit was too bad to open utilities. I called Comcast and canceled the service effective immediately. The representative tried to talk me out of it, mentioning the early termination fee. Charge it, I said. I don't care. The health insurance was harder. I couldn't cancel it mid-month without affecting my own coverage. But I removed my mother and father as dependents effective the end of November. 30 days notice. Policy requirement. That gave them 1 month to figure out their own insurance. Tessa I kept on my plan. She was my sister. This wasn't her fault. By noon, I was sitting in Drew's office at the law firm where she worked. Drew Henderson had been my best friend since sophomore year of college. We'd bonded over late-night study sessions and a shared love of true crime podcasts. She'd seen me through bad breakups and family drama. She knew everything about my parents, had witnessed their behavior at graduation, at birthday dinners, at every major event in my life. When I walked into her office with my folder of evidence, she took one look at my face and closed the door. I spent 2 hours telling her everything, showed her every receipt, every bank statement, every text message from my mother asking for money, the fraudulent credit card, the theft from my wallet, the secret bank account. Drew's expression grew darker with each revelation. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and steepled her fingers, her lawyer face firmly in place. Scarlett, this is financial abuse, identity theft, fraud. You have grounds for criminal charges. I just want my stuff back. I just want them to leave me alone. Then we need to move fast. They're going to escalate when they realize you've cut off their access to your money. She pulled up a document on her computer. First thing Monday morning, you're filing a police report. For everything, the stolen property, the identity theft, all of it. Second, you're going to move out of state if you can, or at least to a different town. Third, you need to prepare for them to come after you. Come after me how? Drew's expression was grim. Parents like yours don't accept losing control easily. They're going to try to manipulate you back. And when that doesn't work, they're going to try to punish you. She was right. My phone started ringing at 8 a.m. on Saturday. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. By 10 a.m., she'd called 14 times. The voicemails progressed from concerned to angry. Scarlett. Honey, the internet isn't working. Did you forget to pay the bill? Call me back? Then, an hour later, Scarlett. This isn't funny. Turn the internet back on. Your father needs it for his job search. Then, fine. Be childish. But you're still paying that health insurance bill on Monday. My father left voicemails too. They started angry and got worse. Threats about taking my car. Threats about kicking me out. Threats about calling the police and having me arrested for stealing from them. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Then my Aunt Phyllis called. Dad's older sister. The one who'd always been his biggest defender. Scarlett Marie Mitchell. How dare you abandon your parents like this, after everything they've done for you, after they opened their home to you when you had nowhere else to go? Her voice was shrill. Self-righteous. Your father is devastated. Absolutely devastated. He told me you stormed out on Thanksgiving after he made one small comment about you contributing more to the household. How ungrateful can you be? We're having a family meeting this afternoon at 3 o'clock to discuss your behavior. You need to be there. I hung up. Let them have their meeting. Let them talk about what an ungrateful daughter I was. I was done defending myself to people who'd never wanted to hear the truth. I was staying at Drew's apartment, sleeping on her couch. It was a small place. A one-bedroom in a decent neighborhood about 40 minutes from my parents' house. Far enough to feel safe. Close enough that I could still get to work. Drew's girlfriend Max was there too. A software engineer with bright pink hair and a tendency to say exactly what she thought. When she heard my story, she actually said, "Holy shit. Your parents are sociopaths." It was refreshing to hear someone just say it plainly. That night, the three of us sat on Drew's couch with Thai takeout and a bottle of cheap wine, planning my next moves. Max had a legal pad and was taking notes like we were planning a military operation. In a way, we were. First priority is getting your property back. Drew said. The laptop and camera your mother pawned? You need to file a police report first thing Monday morning, with receipts and serial numbers. Second, priority is documentation. Max added. Screenshots of everything. Bank statements. Texts. Call logs. Print physical copies and keep them somewhere your parents can't access. Maybe a safety deposit box. Third priority is housing. Drew continued. My couch is yours as long as you need it, but you should start looking for your own place. Somewhere they don't know about. I nodded, trying to absorb it all. What about Tessa? Drew and Max exchanged looks. Scarlett, Drew said gently. You can't save your sister. She has to decide to save herself. All you can do is show her it's possible. But I couldn't just leave Tessa there. Not when I knew what they were capable of. Not when I knew she'd become their next target. Sunday was quiet. Too quiet. My phone had stopped ringing, which somehow felt more ominous than the barrage of calls. I spent the day apartment hunting online, applying for places I could barely afford with my decimated savings. Most landlords wanted first month, last month, and security deposit. That would wipe me out completely. But I needed my own space. Needed to feel safe. That evening, Tessa texted me. They know about the bank account. Dad is losing it. Please be careful. My stomach dropped. How did they find out? They tried to use your debit card for groceries. It was declined. Dad called the bank, and they told him the account was closed. Mom is crying. Dad is drinking. It's bad here. Are you safe? I think so. They're not mad at me yet. But Scarlett, they're saying really awful things about you. They're calling people, telling them you stole from them, that you had a breakdown. Aunt Phyllis is coming over tomorrow. I called Drew immediately. She listened to my concerns and then said something that chilled me. They're building a narrative. They're going to play the victim and paint you as the villain. You need to get ahead of this. Monday morning, I walked into the police station with my folder of evidence. The officer who took my report, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes named Officer Martinez, listened to everything, looked through my receipts, examined the photos I'd taken of the bank statements, made notes about the unauthorized credit card, the missing property, the theft from my wallet. This is a clear case of financial abuse and identity theft. She said, I'm going to take this report, and I recommend you also file for a restraining order if you feel unsafe. I don't know if I need that, I said hesitantly. Officer Martinez looked at me seriously. Miss Mitchell, in my experience, people who are willing to steal from their own child are capable of escalating when that source of income is cut off. I strongly recommend you consider it. I took the case number and left. Drove to the pawn shop 3 miles from my parents' house, the only one in the area. The owner, a gruff man in his 60s named Barry, recognized my laptop immediately. Yeah. Woman brought that in Friday morning. Gave her $300 for it, and that fancy camera. That woman was my mother. She sold stolen property. I have the police report and the original receipts with serial numbers. Barry's expression changed from annoyed to concerned. He pulled up his security footage without my even having to ask. There was my mother. Clear as day. My distinctive leather laptop bag over her shoulder. My camera bag in her hand. She was smiling. Actually smiling. I need to report this to the police, Barry said. But I'm going to need to keep the items as evidence. I understand. Can you make me a copy of that footage? He burned it to a CD for me right there. I see a lot of stuff in this business, he said as he handed it over. But parents stealing from their kids, that's a special kind of low. I drove to work. Sat through meetings I barely remembered. And spent my lunch break calling lawyers. Drew's firm didn't handle family law. But she'd given me referrals. Most consultations were expensive. Ona Lavier, a stern woman named Patricia Grayson, listened to my 5-minute summary and said, "You need to file for a restraining order today. Not tomorrow. Today? Isn't that extreme? Miss Mitchell, your parents have committed identity theft and fraud. They've stolen thousands of dollars from you. They've sold your property. They've shown no remorse, and they're now engaging in what sounds like a smear campaign. This will escalate. I've seen it 100 times. File for the restraining order. Protect yourself legally." I left work early, drove to the courthouse, and filled out the paperwork. Temporary restraining order against Frank Mitchell. I had to check boxes about why I feared for my safety. I checked them all. History of verbal abuse, financial abuse, destruction of property, stalking behavior. The clerk who processed my paperwork barely looked at me. This was routine for her. She'd probably seen a dozen of these applications today. Judge will review this tomorrow. If approved, they'll serve him and there will be a hearing in 2 weeks for a permanent order. I drove back to Drew's apartment in a daze. It all felt surreal. I was taking legal action against my own father. Against my parents. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. That night, my father showed up. I was in the kitchen making tea when Drew's doorbell rang. Well? Rang is an understatement. Someone was leaning on it, the chime echoing through the apartment in continuous bursts. Then the pounding started. "Open this goddamn door. Scarlett, I know you're in there. You think you can steal from us and get away with it. You think you can just cut us off." Drew grabbed her phone and started recording. Max pulled me away from the door. "Don't open it. Don't engage. Call 911. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial. The 911 operator's voice was calm. "What's your emergency?" "My father is trying to break into my friend's apartment. He's threatening me. I'm afraid he's going to hurt someone." "What's the address?" I gave it to her. All the while, my father's voice continued, interspersed with the sound of his fists hitting the door. The wood was shaking in the frame. "You ungrateful bitch. After everything we did for you, we raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head, you owe us. That money is ours." A neighbor's door opened. I heard a man's voice. "Hey, buddy. You need to calm down. Mind your own goddamn business." My father's voice was slurred. He was drunk. Of course he was drunk. Then there was a different sound. A crack. The sound of wood splintering. He was kicking the door. He's trying to break down the door. I told the 911 operator, trying to keep my voice steady. "Police are 2 minutes away. Stay away from the door. Do not open it." Those 2 minutes felt like hours. The pounding continued. The threats continued. My father worked himself into a frenzy. "I'm your father, you have to talk to me. You can't just throw us away, we need that money. Do you know what you've done? Do you know what you've cost us?" Then, sirens. Red and blue lights flashing through the window. Car doors slamming. Authoritative voices. "Sir, step away from the door. Sir, put your hands where I can see them. These people are harboring my daughter. She's a thief. She stole from her own family. Sir, I need you to calm down and step back. I'm not going anywhere until I talk to her. Scarlett. Get out here." Then the tone changed. Commands. The sound of a scuffle. My father's voice rising to a shout. Then a roar. More officers. Finally. Silence, except for my father's voice. Distant now. Still shouting obscenities as they put him in the squad car. The knock on the door was professional. Controlled. Police. Is everyone okay in there? Drew opened the door. Two officers stood there, one with a notepad. Behind them, I could see two more officers with my father. He was handcuffed, red-faced, still struggling. Are you Scarlett Mitchell? Yes. Is that your father? Yes. Has he done this before? No. But he's been calling and threatening me. I filed for a restraining order this afternoon. The officer made notes. Well, that should expedite the process. He's being arrested for attempted burglary, destruction of property, and making terroristic threats. Your friend's landlord will need to file a report for the door damage. Do you want to press charges? Did I want to press charges against my own father? I looked at Drew's door. The frame was cracked. The lock was damaged. My father had literally tried to break it down to get to me. To get to his source of money. Not because he loved me. Not because he was worried about me. Because I'd cut off his access to my bank account. Yes. I want to press charges. The officer nodded like this was exactly what he'd expected me to say. He asked us to come down to the station to make statements. Drew's neighbor, an older man named Mr. Paulson, volunteered to come too. He'd seen the whole thing. Had video on his phone. At the police station, I gave my statement. Told them everything. About the years of financial abuse. About the stolen property. About the identity theft. About the bank account I'd found. About being kicked out with no warning after years of supporting them. I handed over copies of all my evidence. The officer taking my statement, a younger guy named Officer Chen, looked increasingly angry as I talked. Not at me. At my parents. Miss Mitchell, what your parents did to you is criminal. This isn't a family dispute. This is fraud and theft. I just want it to stop. It will. We'll make sure it stops. They kept my father overnight. My mother called me 17 times before I finally blocked her number. The voicemails were a mix of begging and threatening. Please, Scarlett, you have to drop the charges. He didn't mean it. He was just upset. You're destroying this family. How can you do this to us? You're going to give me a heart attack. Please, baby, please come home. We can work this out. Tuesday morning. There was a hearing for the temporary restraining order. My father was there, in an orange jumpsuit, looking haggard. When he saw me, his face contorted with rage. You did this. You put me here. This is all your fault. The judge, a stern black woman in her 50s, was not impressed. Mr. Mitchell, you will remain silent or you will be removed from this courtroom. She looked at my file. Miss Mitchell, I see you filed for this restraining order yesterday afternoon. And then last night, Mr. Mitchell attempted to forcibly enter your place of residence. Yes, Your Honor. And there are police reports documenting this. Yes, Your Honor. Then this is pretty straightforward. Temporary restraining order is granted. Mr. Mitchell, you are to have no contact with your daughter, direct or indirect, for a minimum of 500 feet distance, pending the hearing for a permanent order in 2 weeks. Do you understand? This is bullshit, my father shouted. She's my daughter, I have a right to talk to her. No. Ah, sire. You do not. Not when you've been arrested for attempting to break into her residence. One more outburst, and you will be held in contempt. The judge signed the order and handed it to the bailiff. Served. Next case. I walked out of that courtroom feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. I'd just gotten a restraining order against my own father. My family was completely broken. But I was also, for the first time in years, safe. Drew was waiting for me in the hallway. She'd taken the morning off to be there. How do you feel? I don't know. Empty. Maybe. That's normal. You just set a boundary. A hard boundary. Your brain is going to need time to adjust. We went to get coffee. I tried to go to work, but my boss, Sarah, took one look at me and told me to take the rest of the week off. Family emergency. We'll manage. Take care of yourself. I spent the rest of the day apartment hunting with Drew. Found a studio in a building with good security, 45 minutes from my parents' house. It was small, barely 500 square feet, but it had a kitchen and a bathroom and a door that locked. The landlord, a kind older woman named Mrs. Chen, understood when I explained I needed to move in immediately. She waived the last month's deposit after seeing my police report. My daughter went through something similar with her ex-husband. She said, "You need a safe place. First month and security deposit is fine. You can pay the last month when you're on your feet." I could have cried. Instead, I signed the lease and handed over my debit card. There went most of my remaining savings. I'd have enough for groceries and gas until my next paycheck. That was it. Moving in was surreal. I had so little. The garbage bags of clothes, my laptop and camera, now returned from evidence. My grandmother's jewelry, a box of papers and photographs. That was it. Everything else I owned was at my parents' house. The furniture, the dishes, the books, all of it. Drew and Max helped me buy the essentials. A mattress from a discount store, sheets and towels from Target, basic dishes and cookware from the thrift store. It looked pathetic, all spread out in that tiny studio. But it was mine. Entirely mine. Wednesday, I took the day to get my life in order, changed my address with the post office, updated my work records, called my credit card companies, and explained the situation. The unauthorized card in my name was reported as fraud. They were investigating. Thursday morning, my mother called from a number I didn't recognize. I made the mistake of answering. "Scarlett. Honey, please. Let's talk about this like adults. Come home. Drop the charges against your father. Drop the restraining order. We can forget this whole thing ever happened." "No." "What do you mean?" "No, Scarlett. He's your father. You can't just throw him in jail. He threw himself in jail when he tried to break down Drew's door. He was upset. You cut off all our utilities. You canceled the insurance. Do you know what you've done to us? I had to cancel my appointment. We can't afford to pay for internet. Your father can't look for jobs." I thought about that secret bank account. About the $23,000 sitting there while they cried poverty. "Mom, I know about the savings account. The secret one. The boat. All of it." Silence. Long, heavy silence. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. I saw the bank statements. I saw the boat brochure. You guys have $23,000 sitting in an account while you drained me dry. While you cried about not being able to afford groceries. While you stole from me. That's your father's money. He earned that." "No. Mom!" "He stole it. From his unemployment benefits. From me. And you helped him do it." Her voice changed. Went cold. Hard. "If you don't drop these charges, if you don't come back and fix this, I will make sure everyone knows you abandoned your family. I'll tell them you had a mental breakdown. That you're unstable. I'll ruin your reputation. I'll call your boss. I'll call your friends. I'll make sure no one ever trusts you again." This was the threat I'd been waiting for. The manipulation. The gaslighting. The attempt to control me through fear. And I was ready for it. "You can try, Mom. But I have evidence. Bank statements showing you and Dad stole from me. Text messages asking me to pay for your cosmetic procedures. Receipts for everything I bought for your house. Security footage of you pawning my laptop. Police reports. A restraining order. So go ahead. Tell people whatever you want. But when they ask me about it, I'll show them the truth." Another long silence. Then, "You've changed. You're not the daughter I raised." "You're right. The daughter you raised would have kept letting you abuse her. Would have kept sacrificing herself to keep you comfortable. But that person is gone. She died on Thanksgiving when you kicked her out for getting a promotion." I took a breath. "Don't call me again. The restraining order extends to you too if you keep harassing me." I hung up. Blocked that number too. Friday. I went back to my parents' house with a police escort. Officer Martinez had volunteered, saying she wanted to make sure everything went smoothly. We arrived at 10 in the morning. My mother opened the door. Her face a mask of cold fury. "You called the police, on your own mother. I'm here to get my property. The items I purchased that are still in the house. You're not taking anything. That's our stuff." Officer Martinez stepped forward. "Ma'am, Miss Mitchell has receipts and proof of purchase for every item she's claiming. If you interfere with her collecting her legal property, You'll be charged with theft. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She stepped aside. Walking through that house was like visiting a museum of my past. Everything looked the same, but felt different. Smaller somehow, less important. I had my list, my receipts, my photos. I went systematically from room to room. The desk from my old bedroom, the laptop I'd bought for Tessa, the kitchen appliances, the living room carpet that would be impossible to remove, so I just took photos for my records. The crystal chandelier that I actually could remove, and did. With Officer Martinez's help, my mother stood in the doorway, sputtering threats and insults. You're a thief, you're stealing from us. No. Mom, I'm taking back what's mine. What I paid for. What I have proof of purchasing. I showed Officer Martinez another receipt. This microwave, purchased April 15th. $240 from Best Buy. Take it, Officer Martinez said. We filled Drew's SUV, which she'd lent me for the day. 2 trips. 3 hours. My mother's vitriol raining down the entire time. She called me names I'd never heard her use. Called me ungrateful, selfish, vindictive, cruel. On the second trip, my father appeared. I don't know how. The restraining order said he couldn't be within 500 feet of me. But there he was, pulling into the driveway in a car I didn't recognize. My mother must have called him, warned him. He got out, saw me loading boxes into the SUV, and his face went purple. Stop. You can't take that. That's our property. Officer Martinez was already on her radio, calling for backup. Mr. Mitchell, you're in violation of a restraining order. You need to leave immediately. This is my house. I'm not going anywhere. He started walking toward me. His fists clenched. I backed up. Got behind Officer Martinez. She had her hand on her weapon. Sir, stop right there. Do not come any closer. She's stealing from us. Arrest her. Not me. Sir, for the last time. Stop where you are. He kept coming. Officer Martinez drew her weapon. Stop now, or I will taser you. That stopped him. He stood there in the driveway, shaking with rage. Within minutes, 2 more squad cars arrived. They handcuffed him again, put him back in a squad car. Another violation. Another charge. As they drove him away, he was screaming at me through the window. I'm your father. You owe me. You owe us everything. This is all your fault. You've destroyed this family. I watched the car disappear down the street. Officer Martinez put a hand on my shoulder. You okay? Yeah. I think I am. I took one last look at the house. My childhood home. The place where I'd learned to ride a bike, where I'd had birthday parties, where I'd taken prom photos. It looked shabby in the morning light. The paint was peeling. The yard was overgrown. There were cracks in the driveway. How had I never noticed how run down it was? I'm done here. I told Officer Martinez. Good. Don't come back without an escort. And seriously consider getting that restraining order made permanent. I drove back to my studio apartment with the last load of my things. Set up the microwave. Hung the chandelier, which looked ridiculous in such a small space, but I didn't care. It was mine. That night, Tessa texted me. Can we talk not about them? About me. We met at a coffee shop the next morning. She looked terrible, thinner than ever, with dark circles and a nervous energy that made her jittery. They're taking it out on me, she said without preamble. Everything you did. They're blaming me, saying I should have warned them. Should have stopped you. Dad smashed my laptop. Said I didn't deserve it if I was going to help you betray them. I'm so sorry. Tessa, don't be. It's not your fault. It's theirs. And I'm done too. She pulled out a backpack. I've been saving. Babysitting money. Birthday money. Everything. I have almost $900. Is that enough to get out? My heart broke and soared at the same time. When do you turn 18? 3 months. February 10th. Can you hang on until then, without it getting dangerous? She thought about it. Nodded slowly. I think so. They're mostly just ignoring me now. And I'm at school most of the time anyway. I pulled out my own phone. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to open your own bank account. We'll go to a different bank than where they have accounts. You're going to deposit that money where they can't access it. You're going to get a P.O. box for any mail you don't want them seeing. And we're going to start looking at college scholarships and financial aid. You're smart. Tessa. Straight A's. Right. Mostly. That's good enough. We can work with that. And on your 18th birthday, if you want out, you come stay with me. This couch is yours. She started crying then. Not sad crying. Relief crying. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank me by living your own life. By being happy. By not making the same mistakes I did. We spent the next 3 hours planning. I helped her open a checking account at my credit union. Helped her get a P.O. box. Started a shared spreadsheet of college options and scholarships. It felt good. Like I was doing something right for once. The next few weeks were a blur. The court date for the permanent restraining order. My father showed up with a lawyer this time, tried to argue that I was being vindictive, that this was a family dispute being blown out of proportion. The judge looked at the arrest records, the police reports, the evidence of financial abuse, and made the order permanent. 5 years. No contact. My mother tried to circumvent it by having relatives call me. Aunt Phyllis, Uncle Rick, cousins I barely knew. All of them with the same message. Family is family. You need to forgive them. They made mistakes, but they love you. I blocked every number. The identity theft investigation was ongoing. The credit card company had launched a fraud inquiry. It turned out my father had opened 3 cards in my name over the past 2 years. My credit score had tanked. I was working with the credit bureaus to get them removed. But it was a slow process. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into my new role. Managed my team well. Got praise from my boss. Landed a big client. The promotion was real. And I was good at my job. Better than good. Without the constant financial and emotional drain of my parents, I could finally focus. My studio apartment slowly became home. I bought a used couch from Craigslist. Found a desk at a yard sale. Hung up photos of friends. Not family. Drew and Max came over for dinner parties where we ate on mismatched plates and drank cheap wine and laughed until we cried. 3 months passed. Then 6. Tessa turned 18 and I helped her move into the dorms at the state university. She'd gotten a partial scholarship and financial aid, had a part-time job in the library, was planning to study psychology. I want to understand why people do what they do. She said, why mom and dad are the way they are. That's a good reason to study psych. I told her, just don't spend too much time trying to fix them. Some people don't want to be fixed. I know. I'm doing this for me. The holidays came and went. Thanksgiving at Drew's place with her family. Christmas at Max's. I didn't miss the stress. Didn't miss the obligation. Didn't miss the constant fear that I'd say or do something wrong. Then, in January, I got the text. The one I opened this story with. The heart attack. The plea to come home. And I felt nothing, because here's what I'd learned. My parents didn't love me. Maybe they never had. Or maybe they'd loved who they wanted me to be. The endless source of money and support. The daughter who sacrificed everything and asked for nothing, but they'd never loved the real me. The person I was when I wasn't busy being their solution to every problem, and once I accepted that, once I really understood it in my bones, they lost all their power over me. A year after that Thanksgiving dinner, I hosted my own. In my studio apartment that I'd turned into a real home, Drew and Max came. Of course. Tessa came home from college for the weekend. We squeezed around my small table, now covered with a cheerful tablecloth I'd bought at Home Goods. The plates were still mismatched, but I'd embraced that. The food was simple because I was cooking for enjoyment, not obligation. Roast chicken instead of turkey. Mashed potatoes. A salad. Store-bought pies. We said what we were grateful for. Drew was grateful for her law career and her girlfriend. Max was grateful for her health and her rescue dog Baxter, who was currently begging under the table. Tessa was grateful for college and independence, and the chance to start over. I was grateful for all of it. For the hard lessons. For the strength I didn't know I had. For the friends who stood by me. For the sister who found her own courage. For the apartment that was mine. Completely mine. Paid for with my own money, and filled with things I actually wanted. After dinner, Tessa helped me clean up. We worked in comfortable silence until she said, "I heard they lost the house. Foreclosure. It went through last month." "I'm sorry," I said automatically, though I wasn't sure why. "Don't be. It was inevitable. You just postponed it with your money. They've been living with Uncle Rick, but I heard he's about to kick them out too. Dad's still not working. Mom's still spending money they don't have. They're exactly the same, just without you there to fix everything." "What about you? Do you talk to them?" "Barely. They call sometimes, ask if I can send money. I tell them I'm a broke college student, which is true. They don't like that answer." She dried a plate, set it in the rack. "They still blame you. You know, for everything, but I see it differently now. I see that you didn't cause any of their problems. You just stopped enabling them. And that's when everything they'd been avoiding caught up to them." She was right. My money, my sacrifice, had been a bandage on a wound that needed stitches. All I'd done was delay the inevitable. "Do you think they'll ever change?" Tessa asked. "No. People like them don't change. They just find new people to use." "That's sad." "Yeah, but it's also freeing. I spent 25 years trying to earn their love, trying to be good enough, trying to matter. And it was never about me. I was always going to be disappointing because they didn't want a daughter. They wanted a paycheck with legs." Tessa hugged me then, fierce and tight. "I'm glad you got out. I'm glad you showed me it was possible." Later that night, after everyone left, I sat on my couch with a cup of tea and looked around my small apartment. It wasn't much. The couch was secondhand. The chandelier was still ridiculous in the space. The kitchen was barely big enough to turn around in. But it was mine. Every single thing in it was purchased by me, chosen by me, arranged by me. No one could take it away. No one could guilt me about it. No one could tell me I owed them for it. On my bookshelf was a stack of unopened letters, cards from my parents that I'd never read. I'd kept them. I'm not sure why. Some kind of evidence, maybe. Or maybe I was still waiting for a real apology, but I didn't need it anymore. Didn't need their approval or their love or their acknowledgement that they'd done wrong. I had something better. I had myself, and I'd learned that was enough. I thought about the girl I'd been a year ago. Exhausted, broke, desperate for crumbs of approval from people who saw her as a resource. I barely recognized her. She felt like someone I used to know, someone I felt sorry for. The woman I was now, she was different, stronger. Not because going through hell made me tough, but because I'd learned I could survive it, could walk through fire and come out the other side, not unscathed, but alive, functional, actually happy in moments. Revenge, I'd learned, wasn't about destruction. It wasn't about making them hurt the way they'd hurt me. Real revenge was this building a life so authentic and peaceful that their chaos couldn't touch it anymore. It was thriving without them. It was being proof that you didn't need toxic people, even family, to be whole. I chose myself, and every day I kept choosing myself. That was the greatest victory of all. So here's what I want to know. Have you ever had to choose between loyalty and self-respect? Have you ever been someone's ATM? Emotional or financial? What would you do if you were in my shoes? Drop your stories in the comments. And if this resonated with you, if you've been where I was or you're there right now, hit that like button. Subscribe because I'll be sharing more about this journey. And remember, you don't owe anyone your destruction. Not even family. The worth you're looking for cannot be found in someone else's approval. It's already inside you. Sometimes you just have to walk away to see it.